Nice to see you, Paul.
Nice to see you.
We're here this evening with Paul Obinna. He's a teacher from Manchester.
That'll do. There and thereabouts.
Are you working in London now?
No, I'm actually living in Preston.
Preston, okay. So you're all over the place.
Yeah.
You come to give us some knowledge on what we've been talking about this evening. And what we're doing, we're trying to go through the 18th and 19th century. And I wanted to get your perspective on how things were running in Britain at that time.
Manchester was the organizer of the cotton trade in the north. Mm-hmm. Liverpool gets the bad rep because they were the henchmen who were going to go and get the slaves, etc., etc. Mm-hmm. But as I was saying to my girlfriend, we were driving, and I was telling her just the other day that Lancashire is notoriously wet. It's damp, the atmosphere, because of the Pennine Hills. Mm-hmm. So what happened was they shipped the cotton into Liverpool and distributed it by the canals. They had the Leeds-Liverpool canal system. So the canals would distribute to all the factories that were built up all around there. But they're in the main spinning because the cotton remained loose because of the dampness. Then there was the spinning that took place. What happened was the US Civil War took place, and Manchester supported the Union, and Liverpool supported the Confederacy. And this is it was a real clash that took place, which is surviving today in the fact that the Scousers, as in Liverpool, are Manchester United's worst enemy. Man City aren't. The other team in the town, the enemy, is Liverpool. And that comes from the fact that Liverpool, when the Confederacy lost the war, Liverpool had to pay compensation to Mancunian shipping. And so this clash was there. The hatred was so much, Manchester built the Manchester Ship Canal to bypass Liverpool. So the Liverpool, the Scousers used to call it Manchester sur Mer, Manchester on Sea. They ridiculed it until the ship canal was built. Then they bypassed and Manchester did their own trade with the world. Hence, on their coat of arms, on the Manchester coat of arms, you got the globe and the bees, and it's saying that, we ship to the world now. So that's the circumstance. You get the context of the rivalries that were going on. You've got rid of the controlling factors of the women, 1480 to 1780. Then you enclose the lands, so there's not these things, so people have to move into the cities to survive. You build these cities up with the heinous conditions that they were. But then what you do, you got the factory workers who were working like 12 hours, whatever. Children working, everybody's working, just put into an enslaved condition. For instance, I don't know if you know the old Hacienda in Manchester. So you have factory records and all that. Well, the factory in factory records was all owned by Charles Engels' father. So Engels and Marx, who did communism, etc. So you had this kind of, if you will, there were these kind of guys who were awakened, who were the factory owners, but they had this thing about workers' rights, etc. So they were trying to bring balance within the scenario that there was, and try to make a better day because the conditions were terrible. Sorry. What's this in the Manchester? One of the guys who was the leader of the city council. We were going to spring the slave ship angle just before the Commonwealth Games, and the Commonwealth Games were held in Manchester. But then somebody was at one of our classes where we mentioned it. He got this, and then he ran it without having a plan. But it was just like, well, you guys did it, and so they got the thing. So Graham Stringer, he said that Manchester has a tradition of fighting against slavery. Because you see Abraham Lincoln, there's a statue of Lincoln in Manchester. And so I remember getting a message to him via I think it was his partner who was a reporter. And I told her, I said, we ain't the usual street Negroes you might think. I said, we study, we know our history. Mm-hmm. And I said that whilst you went against enslavement in the North American and USA, you then, after a few years, were importing cotton from Brazil, a bigger slave culture.
But don't you think that is British culture to a T? Because when you think about it,
I mean, adaptivity.
Sorry?
Adaptation.
Oh, yes, yeah. Because I find it just really amusing that Britain was the biggest slave traders in the game at one point. And then as soon as the abomination got put through,
abolition.
That's the one. That's the one. The abolition got put through. It was like, oh, look, aren't we fantastic? Look how great we are.
In Brazil, they have a term, para inglês ver. Para inglês ver means for the English to see.
Okay.
So when they did the abolition in 1807, and I've got to mention that remember who's on the throne at the time is George III with Charlotte Sophia, who was Charlotte Sophia, Queen Charlotte,
and that
was an abolitionist.
That amazes me that all of this was happening while she was on the throne, and what was the thought process? I can't find anything that tells us much about how she was feeling about what was going on.
Well, she was a friend of the abolitionists.
Okay.
She was. You also have to look at George III. They call Farmer George, because this population explosion took place during his reign. He was like a savant. He was a genius. But they say his madness was like he was. People just didn't pick up on how he thought, and so he had bouts of depression and mania and whatever. But he, at the time, so you look in 1801. There's a guy called Thomas Malthus who came out with Malthusian theory, and he was saying that the carrying capacity of the produce of Britain at the time was not enough to feed this new population. So he was talking about sexual abstinence. He was talking about limiting the number of children born, etc., etc. But this is all because of the rise of these new cities and the conditions in them.
But Charlotte had 15 children, so
yeah.
Right?
But Charlotte was also. Remember, Queen Charlotte's house is in what's it called? Kew Gardens. Her and her husband were talking about the generating of more food through agriculture. That was her and his kind of passion. And these initiations of like using turnips to regenerate the soil. This is crop rotation.
This goes where the turnip guy comes into it, doesn't it?
Yeah. Because what you've got is they were talking. I think it's potassium or something that goes back into the soil when you grow turnips. Whereas they used to have to leave the field fallow with no no crops in it for a year. So they brought these innovations in to increase the yield of the fields to get more food for the new population. Now, who do you think would have been involved in generating more food? But the Africans who were in the Caribbean, across the Caribbean, growing all these different crops. Mm-hmm. So it's a simple thing that the generation was going on there. If you remember this thing, the association, for instance, with women and the land. So you have Charlotte Sophia, who was the most prolific of the royal wives, and you got to look at live births as well. Is thing. You actually say that a woman is fertile or infertile. The word husband relates to animal or plant husbandry, the tending of plants. So the idea of a husband is that they own the field, and husbandry, you tend the plants, you plant your seed. So this is the work of the homuncultists, the Roman Catholics. They believe that every sperm was a fully formed human being that got fired into the woman, and that was the idea of planting the seed. Mm. And so this whole mindset and attitude, remember I was saying, women were murdered, killed. They had to get the women domesticated and turn them into matrices.
Yeah, yeah.
So you've got an attitude going on culturally.
Yeah, something else I was looking at where they were saying that the idea of male being in charge and men being the hierarchy didn't come from African culture. It wasn't in African culture at any point. It was, this is a Western ideal.
They say in what they say, West African tradition. I'll quote Wade Nobles so people don't think it's just me spouting. They always say that the man is the head of the house, the woman is the neck. Mm-hmm. Now, the male is the ultimate servant of the family, because there's certain times when it's nurturing. If a woman is heavily pregnant or is nurturing the child or whatever, that she's incapacitated to an extent. And at that time, that's when the woman is tending to the children, to the offspring. It means that by West African, I know in Igbo tradition, the mother-in-law is meant the woman who's just had the child. Her mother comes to tend the child, and that's part of the tradition. So you got that lineage going down, the grandmother to the mother. Now, in ancient culture, in ancient African culture, when the going gets tough, the woman gets going. So that's why Oset or Isis, when Osiris is killed and the body scattered, she goes in the form of a vulture as getting carrion and pulls the body back together. The only part she can't find is the penis, which is the obelisk symbol, which is the symbol of remembrance. Right? So the idea, the abridged version is this, is that when that is in control of the female, and that's when we will regenerate. Okay. But that's an ancient message. But this idea of the man being the head of the house, yeah, but he's just the figurehead. It's like the woman is the neck. So when there were twin towers in West Africa, they were called male institution, female institution. But what happened was, if you take the idea of this twin towers, they flew the plane only into the female institution, knocked it down, leaving the male institution standing. Mm. That's why we're out of balance with a lot of things today.
Definitely. Well, I could talk to you all day. Your knowledge is amazing, and it's, I might actually give you a ring another point just to have a conversation, because you just inspired me totally. And I don't know how your head keeps those dates and everything. That I put them in there and then they fall out for me somehow. I don't know.
No, it's a cat. It's just a cat. We get a framework to catch it in, but it's very important. The context of the 17th and 18th century, major work that you're doing this.
Definitely. Well, thank you for that.